Hey, what's going on, everybody? How are you doing? I hope that everybody is doing fantastic today. We are at another Thursday, and so you're probably still celebrating or being over your celebration of St. Patty's Day yesterday. So I understand. I get it. I understand 100% completely. All right. So we are on right now, and this is an amazing show. We have such a wonderful guest. I can't wait to get to her, but I want to get more of you on. And I know that sometimes we have folks on from Facebook, we got folks on from YouTube, and we have folks on from LinkedIn Live. So we are just going to just start populating those comments. I know they're going to start coming in rapid fire. Thank you. So we got one. They're starting to come in now. We got one on the board. So welcome to Hurdlers of Adversity, conversations with inspirers and maximizers of pivotal moments. I'm your host, John Register. I'm an international keynote speaker, a change mindset warrior, and I work with successful businesses to help them hurdle adversity, amputate fear, embrace a new normal mindset to win the medals that are in their lives. This is a show where you get up close and personal with individuals who have overcome some type of adversity. They have lived through it. Their experiences help push all of us. And we get to have dynamic dialogues with them because they're moving the needle all the time. And I have such a phenomenal guest on right now. But first, we have to share the reason why I got a slew of ladies coming through is because this is Women's History Month and Appreciation Month. And I'm just so excited to introduce you to folks that I think are just really phenomenal at what they do. So all these conversations are always elevating. We had a great one last week with Kathleen Klauwitzer. We had another one before that with Latanya Moore. And so this is no exception today. So the women I have on are interviewing are bad A women, women who are changing the business game unapologetically, no exceptions, no holds barred. So, but before we get started, before we get to our first guest, I want you to put in the chat box a phenomenal woman in your life. So I've been talking about my mother all this week, and then my wife and my daughter's coming up. You're going to see those being hit on LinkedIn as well. But put in the chat box a phenomenal woman that is in your life. We have North Carolina on. So looking forward to this conversation with, yes, and she spilled the beans, Diane, right there for sure. That's got to be Lynn Keir, the one and only from Diebold Nixdorf. So thank you, Lynn, for being on. As always, invite your friends to have this great conversation. This is going to be a fantastic one. So I can't wait to get the conversation rolling. So the name of phenomenal woman in your life. And if you are watching this in the replay section, still do that as well, because we want to celebrate her during this month for sure. So please share with your tribe. Please follow on LinkedIn. Please subscribe on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook group, Amputate Fear, you're already there, but keep on sharing it out with others. Then put in a modification, your notification for the future shows, and please listen to the archive shows of the past. You're absolutely going to love them. And Lynn says, my mom is also a phenomenal woman. Loved hearing your tribute to your rock star. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, my mom's a total rock star, and aging now and aging gracefully. But it's hard going through that time period of life. But, we get through it because that's, we all have to walk that path at one point in time. I know some of you might not be familiar with me. So as you're coming into the room, just real quickly, once again, my name is John Register. I identify as an inspirational catalyst and a change mindset warrior. At 5:29 in the afternoon on May 17th, 1994, I was one of the fastest hurdlers in the United States, picked to go to the Olympic Games in 1996. At 5:30, I would never run another hurdle in my life. I misstepped the hurdle, dislocated my knee, severed an artery behind the kneecap, and then just 7 days later, had to make the decision to amputate my leg above the knee. It was a tough decision, but we got through it. We made it through. My wife, she says, you know what, John, we'll get through it. It's just we have to create a new normal mindset. And that's what I did. I embraced this new normal mindset, began swimming for physical therapy, made a Paralympic team, and went to Atlanta as a Paralympic athlete. Saw athletes running and jumping on artificial limbs, had a leg made for running, and then won a silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia. I took all that acumen and then built a program for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee called the Paralympic Military Sport Program, which served wounded, ill, and injured service members to use sports as a tool for their rehabilitation. It turned into Warrior Games, it turned into Prince Harry's Invictus Games, and now we are serving so many people, so many injured veterans and people with disabilities across the world. It's amazing, amazing experience. So that's a little bit about me. All our guests on the show have similar lives. All you have similar lifestyles and stories as well. And I want to make sure that we honor and celebrate each one of those. So let's get into it and meet our guest for the hour. She is a serial entrepreneur, former MBA professor at Mizzou, and a New York Times best-selling author. She has served as entrepreneur in residence at H&R Block, Commerce Bank, and several government agencies. She has written 2 books on launching new products and creating a culture of innovation. She is obsessed with helping teams and organizations achieve breakthrough results by tweaking their daily habits. She is here to unlock our curiosity to exponential growth. Please welcome the lovely Diana Kander. Diana, thank you so much for being on today.
What an introduction, John. Thank you.
Of course. I remember watching you on stage in Kansas City, and I was enthralled. Just how, not just the ability you're commanding that room that we were in, but more so the content that you were delivering and how you packaged it and how it just made so much sense. And I don't see a lot of presenters who are in such command of their material because they go so deep in it. A lot of people go wide, you go deep. Tell me a little bit about, kind of what brought you into this work around curiosity.
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I had one venture that went particularly horrible. And out of the struggle of that experience, when things were at their darkest, I started journaling, and that journal turned into my first book, which is here, on how to launch disruptive products or how not to do it. Yeah. And a lot of companies got a hold of the book and they said, can you come and help our folks think like entrepreneurs? And I said, sure. And once I started teaching the tools of entrepreneurship, how to experiment, how to test your assumptions, I learned that there was a bigger problem inside big companies. And that is a lot of people were operating out of fear. They weren't going to do experiments. They weren't going to try new things because they just wanted to keep their jobs and get their bonus and get their promotion. And so I learned that I couldn't really teach them entrepreneurship, but I could teach them how to be curious. And that is the seed to thinking like an entrepreneur and being an innovator.
I find that we're very parallel, even when you mention fear. It's from a different aspect of it. But I think, when I'm talking about fear, it's fear not being courageous enough to make the commitment to something. And so when you're using it, in what you are trying to get out and help other people discover, what do you think is that nugget that helps people make that shift from their fear to what I call like a freedom moment?
For me, it's not about trying to resist it and say like, don't be afraid, but it's find something else that excites you and interests you. And so I try to get them through the path of curiosity. I'm trying to get you to be really curious about your blind spots at work, things you might be missing, things that could be going much better. And if I can get you curious enough, then you'll not worry as much about all the things that are worrying you.
So when you say you get somebody like curious about it, give me an example of, don't have to use any names or kill the people. But
sure.
What's like an example of getting more curious about a question that somebody may not want to be curious about?
Yeah, well, so most people assume that no news is good news in their relationships with customers, employees, and vendors. And that's not necessarily the case. Most people won't say anything is going wrong. They'll just leave. And so creating feedback loops where you have the opportunity to find out what you could be doing better, what your customers wish you knew about their service or your offering, that's an incredible way to find some really low-hanging fruit for most people on things to improve that will create a huge ROI for the business.
So, there's always a story of how we find what we love to do. And I know you're talking about, you had a bad experience and you started journaling and all of a sudden, the sky opens up. Oh my gosh, people like this. They like me. They trust me. They want me to help them. Tell me about, you know, how did you find the work to be an entrepreneur? I mean, what was the seedling for you to say, I'm going to ditch corporate America, I'm going to go on my own path? Walk us through that process.
I think it's about being highly unemployable, John. I mean, when it really comes down to it. No, for me, the spark came from my parents. I immigrated to the United States in 1989 when I was 8 with my folks. They got jobs at Pizza Hut and TJ Maxx making minimum wage. And they quickly learned that they had very limited upward mobility. It was very difficult to survive on minimum wage for our family of 4. Mm-hmm. And so my parents started their own business. So I was 8 when we came to the US. I was in middle school when they started a manufacturing operation for people's crowns. And by the time I was in law school, it had become very successful. And now they were employing 18 different families. And they had gone from being barely able to survive to the top income bracket.
Wow. And so you seeing that, that's the turning point for you? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I saw for me, like what entrepreneurship could do for you. It can completely turn around your stars. You can create something out of nothing. And there's nothing more powerful than that. And as I became an entrepreneur myself and saw others, I also saw all of the negative things that could happen, like people cashing in their 401ks, losing everything on one big bet. And so I really became very passionate about helping people minimize the downsides of taking those big risks and increase the chances of the upside.
So you're not a one that, because I've always hear the people I watch some of the webinars and burn the ships.
No,
go
please
in.
Don't burn the ships. Don't quit your job.
Don't quit your job. Yeah, I'm a slow burner as well, because I think I worked maybe 7 years before I fully launched out into the deep, right? To use that analogy. And I worked it in the evening time to try to build a company and to see would it thrive. I probably could have done it faster, but I was learning and making the mistakes along the way. And how important is it for not getting all the answers, but actually making your own mistakes? Or do you get the silver spoon and, say, hey, just watch out for what I watched out for. You don't want to do that. Or is it a combination of both that help you be successful?
You mean for my parents and their experience?
Well, I think for parents is one, but I think just from anybody, right? We talk about mentors, those that have walked the path before us, or do we, take our own lumps and have to learn the process for ourselves so that we might be able to teach it to someone else? And is it cyclical? What have you found in your experience?
For most mentors have a very limited view of what it is that's in front of you. They have like this much exposure. And a lot of the times their advice is about reliving their own past and their own stories. So I feel like no matter how much advice you're getting from others, you're going to have to take your own lumps, and fear and setbacks, failure and setbacks are unavoidable. If you take a life of adventure and figuring out how to get back up without such injuries that prevent you from playing again is the key to the game.
And so, and what helps you do that? I mean, so I'm always curious about. Oh, that's a good word. I'm always curious about what makes people make that turn that corner, right? When it gets tough, some people fold it up and they say, I can't do it. I'm going to go back to the old job, and I'll just kind of lick my wounds. Some people double down. And, they say, well, if that didn't work, I'll try something else. Have you, in your research and your time, found what are some insights to make people move and not?
So I actually have been researching failure a lot in my work. And there's a process, several steps that all of us go through, kind of like the process of loss. There's several stages to it. There's a similar process to how we all go through a failure. And actually, our natural instincts during a failure are horrible and only cause pain and injury and make us quit. And I think about it like our natural instincts when we're falling. So if you think about you tripping and falling on the sidewalk, most people will stick out their hands in front of them, right? And they go straight down. And that is like the worst thing you could do. You could break your wrist, you could have a head injury, break a hip. So every year, 9 million people a year go to the emergency room because they don't know how to fall. And there's a proper technique to falling, and that is to cover your head, which feels weird, and to roll into a ball and to actually roll through the fall.
Yes.
Now, just hearing that on this chat isn't going to make anybody good at falling. You have to practice it somewhere on a mattress to get the hang of it so that you can do it in the real world. And I feel the same way. Yeah, and I feel the same way about failure. Yeah. Like, you have to roll through the steps. You have to practice it in small micro failures to see that you can get back up and roll out of it. And then you'll be much more equipped towards bigger ones. So I would say a lot of people who can roll through things have had experiences in their success of failures in the past where they knew that they could survive it and get through it.
I love that. I'm going to come back and ask you a follow-up question to that. But right now we have some people that are in the chat. And so one just coming on, Diana Parker, she's saying it was her mother that loves unconditionally. So that was going to, and then Lynn says mom also as well. Keep talking. These moms are just out there today. So that's great. These phenomenal women. I find it fascinating that, we don't go to sports figures. We don't go to movie stars. We go to people who are closest to us. Was there somebody that was really close to you? I know your mom, but anybody else that was like a mentor for you, that was a woman that you admired, that helped you through some of the process?
It's funny. I was really afraid of women for most of the beginning of my professional career. I had a really bad experience with a woman who was a senior boss, and I thought I was just not good at working with other women. And it's one of those things that I had to roll through. Now I'm almost 40, and every one of my professional relationships is with a woman, and they make me stronger. And it's understanding how to make those relationships work and how they are different and special. And so I would say, my manager for speaking is a woman. The people that help all of my technical aspects. I mean, I'm just so fortunate to have women who teach me on a daily basis.
That's great. Like, I have one man on my team, and it's not me. It's one other guy, but everybody else are ladies, right? these phenomenal women telling me, they all tell me what to do and how you can do this, you need to do that, and they're rock stars, solid, and so I love that. That's why I wanted to celebrate all this month. But I want to come back. You're talking about rolling through and trying to practice the roll through of failure, and so. Do you have the steps that, to kind of share with us what those might be?
Yeah. I mean, most of us get stuck in the steps, and that is when a failure first happens, the first thing that we do is deny that it's happening. Like, no, this is going to be fine. And then a surprising step number 2 that most people do is called escalating commitment. So when it becomes obvious to you that things aren't working, the vast majority of people double down, because the pain of a potential loss is so much worse than admitting it right now. So we're going to delay it by doubling down. Then once it becomes really obvious that it's not working, people fall into shame and defensiveness. And so each one of these steps is incredibly easy to get stuck in, and helping people work through those stages and get to the place where you can finally take a look at what was there, that the assets from the thing that didn't work out. And that could be intellectual property, like a process that you started, a logo that you created, whatever. So you learned something, a list of customers, the actual product itself. And you can use that IP, those assets, to create something new later. So I have an entire closet filled with intellectual property from things that didn't work out that I'm like, I'll reuse them one day for something else.
You're a hoarder.
Yeah. Yes, a failure hoarder. Yes.
But your house looks so cluttered, uncluttered.
It's all in a closet.
I can walk to one room to the next.
I can barely open the door. So.
I love that about, and I think I find myself a lot. What I most resonated with is with the doubling down. I find myself doing that a lot when I'm onto something. I'm like, oh, I can do it better. I can do it. I want to put more effort into this failure.
So I will tell you, this is the number 1 source of corporate waste right now in America. And that is because they don't have any metrics in place to tell them when to pivot or try something else. And so they're just going to keep throwing good money after bad and not attempting to shift and really save the project.
Do you find they hoard the money, the assets?
And it's like something that happens on these projects that are going horribly bad. It's like the money is off books oftentimes. Like they have a really thoughtful process for everything else, but then there these big projects that aren't going well, and it seems like an endless supply of funds.
Wow. Hey, listen, everybody, if you've been enjoying this conversation with Diana Kander, I want you to just do her a solid. Shout her out in whatever medium that you're looking at and watching this from. So if you're on YouTube, put her in the chat box there. If you are on LinkedIn, please, use her @ for Diana Kander, and share a nugget that you've learned from her today's thus far in our conversation. And we'll get back to the conversation in just a second. But we want you to, if you have a question for her, put that also in the chat box, and I will try to get to that before our conversation ends today. I'm just fascinated by this young lady, and just so curious about her. So, you asked. I was reading a little bit on the website, and one of the things that struck me. There's many things, but there are two I want to bring up. The first one is, you say, what causes big brands to lose relevance with their customers? And I want to know what you have discovered in that. And you can go on to the answer part of that.
Yeah, this is my favorite topic to talk about. This is a hobby of mine, is to find people on LinkedIn who used to work at companies that went out of business and interview them about what happened. Wow. And I will tell you, Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, also wrote a research book called How the Mighty Fall, where he outlines a 5-step process of how companies lose relevance and go out of business. And step 1 of going out of business is called hubris born of success. And what that means is that we were so successful that it went to our head and we thought the success would continue, or it was because we were so smart. And so we lost our curiosity. So the opposite of curiosity is certainty. And the more sure you are in your 5-year plan and how happy your customers are, the less you're going to learn and the less you're going to improve. So my goal is to head off that decline and that demise by maintaining a healthy level of curiosity inside all the organizations that I work with.
That's fascinating. My brain just went straight to athletics.
Yeah.
And people have asked. I ran for the University of Arkansas. So John McDonnell is the most winningest coach in track and field history. Actually, in any sport NCAA history, he's the most winningest coach. 42 national championships he helped to orchestrate by putting teams together. And that was probably one of the greatest lessons I learned. How do you stay on top when everybody's scratching for you and you've won 4 national championships in a row, right? And it's fighting against that certainty. It's the surety. It's fighting against complacency, because that evolves and it can create complacency inside of it. What I found, that what I've been talking about a lot, Diana, is around this topic of certainty. People are saying right now in today's world, post, this pre-COVID, post-COVID, this COVID world, is we have so much uncertainty, but I don't think they're being curious about it. Right? I think what it feels like to me is that I want to get back to a level of certainty, but certainty is an illusion because we never had it. It was never there, because if it was, we would have known how to handle. We've been prepared for COVID, and we weren't prepared for it. So walk me through that, how that kind of squares. If we got uncertainty, and so that should be asking more questions, but we're not asking questions during COVID. We're just kind of complaining about, I want to get back to my normal lifestyle.
You mentioned complacency, and a lot of people think it stems from comfort in your position. And I really believe that it stems from fear, that it's really scary at the top. Things can only get worse. You have to, it's much harder to stay at the top than it is to get there. It requires a new level of pushing and breaking through barriers. And so the way that I think about it in my work is I am either going to be the source of change or change will happen to me. So there is no comfortable. I mean, COVID is one thing that makes me uncomfortable, but I have a plan for every year to make myself uncomfortable, to force growth and evolution. And that is the only way to feel comfortable in the long term.
I love that. I'm just geeking out right now because I identify with that 100%. That there's a fear to being what happens, and the fear kind of goes into how am I going to look if I fail? What are people going to think about me if I fail? What's my acumen going to be like if I fail? I think that's powerful. And when I take the analogy back to the Arkansas Razorbacks, I think we were around an environment that was an environment that was conducive to win. So we had people that were Olympians. We had people that had been to the top level of the game, and they knew what it took to stay there. And so that kind of elevated everybody else. But there came a time, where the coaching staff changed out, and then we saw a decline. And the decline came because I believe it was fear. It was fear of how do I sustain this success? And I don't know if I can. So then I don't know if I'm competent enough. And all these things begin to tumble down and the what ifs start coming in. Is that kind of what you're saying with this whole mindset around curiosity and fear and trying to stay at the top?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, so you and I are keynote speakers, and I would say when COVID hit and our industry pretty much died for a full year,
yeah, right.
A lot of people became very nervous about their business. And so they were like, okay, I'm going to react to the market, and I'm going to come up with an offering that I think will work in this new marketplace. And I feel like you and I both said, no, we're going to push ourselves not to react to what's happening, but to grow as speakers and to continue to build thought leadership and maybe think of new ways to do it, but not as a response to what was happening. And I think that as a result, we're in a much stronger position as things are opening up.
I became very jaded for a moment because I saw a lot of inspirational, motivational speakers, and they were just like freaking out. I'm like, wait a minute, you're talking. This is your lane. This is your time to shine. This is what you were built for, or at least what you said you were built for. And going deeper in the content, I can't even tell you how more enriched I am in this experience. Even though it was tough to get through, but the level of depth in the presentation now, I'm sure you found the same thing. I don't think I would have had it, right? If this hadn't happened, I think I would have still been kind of on a, not pretty deep, but not as deep as I am right now. So why then is curiosity so important?
I mean, it is the essence of everything. It is a source of growth. It is the place where you start. It is the thing that creates engagement inside of your workforce. If you can make a workforce that is curious, they will be engaged. And so many people try to do the shortcuts, like we're going to create engagement events. And instead of that, it's just like happiness. If you focus on what makes you happy, you'll never be happy. But if you focus on doing things that provide meaning and curiosity, you'll get there. And so to me, it is one of the most fundamental things we can work to create more of in our workplace.
So now I'm curious again. Okay, so I'm looking on the website, going back to your website again, and you all can go out there to Kander.com, Kander.com. You ask, how has Snoop Dogg
yes
continued to innovate decade after decade?
Yes.
Right.
He's
So
like
that's
one of
my
my
question.
my favorite.
I want to know the answer. How do you think that he continues to do it?
I know.
Stays
So
relevant.
I make these silly innovation videos for LinkedIn, and I had one specifically on Snoop Dogg, and he shared in an interview that he creates this forced curiosity for himself by he has a little like room of solitary confinement. So it's got no windows, no TVs. He doesn't even sleep on the bed. He sleeps on the floor. And it's basically a place for him to go and say, like, I have nothing. I'm starting from scratch and I'm here to create.
Wow.
And if you don't take off the comfort of daily life or the accolades that you've received for being successful, it'll be really hard for you to sit down and do that. And so I think every great creator has a process of how they force themselves to get out of their comfort zone.
That's great. I've been working on something right now as well. It's kind of like the silence retreat. You know, how do you find your voice again? And I think it's one of the it's the hidden gem in resilience. So I talk about resilience, and then I say embedded in the word resilience is the word silence. So where do we go to find that moment like a Snoop Dogg? Where do we go to find that moment like a Diana Kander? You know, where do we find our best opportunity to thrive and work? Is it in the car? Is it on a jog? Is it on a walk? Is it meditating? Is it in your shower? Where do you go to find that respite? So where do you go? What's your
I think
spot?
that the more you can take away, the more you'll find your essence and who you really are and what you want to do. And so COVID in a way was a gift because it took away all of the travel, and what was left was like soul searching of what is it that I want to create in the world. That's the high level answer. And then the shower, I have to have like a piece of paper next to the shower because it always is very fruitful.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a car when I'm driving all of a sudden or on a bicycle when I'm moving, you know, like in time and space, it just seems to do that. So if you've been enjoying once again this conversation with Diana Kander, just put that in the chat box. I want to see what your thoughts are. If you have a question for her before we get ready to head into our rapid round coming up here in a second, I want to know what your thoughts are. Ask her a question because this is such a phenomenal conversation. Deny, escalate. We always escalate the commitment, and then we have a shame defensive. So that's what I took away from how we walk through this process of fear. Is that right? Or
yeah. So denial, escalating commitment, then shame, then defensiveness. Then we want to forget about it. So we just like, burn anything that reminds us of that thing and then turn 180 degrees away from it. And the sixth stage is finding the opportunities. And so most people never get to the sixth stage because they want to stop thinking about that thing that brings them hurt and pain. And so finding a way to mourn a failure and see it as a growth opportunity. And it's not just about like shifting your perspective. It's about being nice to yourself in the same way that you would be nice to a friend that was going through the same thing, to allow yourself to get to that point of opportunity.
So giving some grace. Yeah. So I want to come. I got all these things I want to ask you.
Sorry.
That's don't be sorry. This is good. Okay, so I got these rapid fire questions. I want to go back to because I want you to name something else that I just came. But I got these rapid fire questions for you. It's just fun part of the show. And they're just first thing that comes to your mind. You don't have to explain it. You just say it. I'm not going to ask you a follow-up question to it.
Sounds like I'm not allowed to explain it. So I'm ready.
You don't have to explain it. Really. All right, here we go. All right, last book you read.
Adam Grant's About Changing Your Mind.
Did curiosity kill
Think
the cat?
again.
Think again.
What?
Think again. Okay, Adam Grant. Think again. Did curiosity kill the cat?
No.
Make a curious face. Very good. Snoop Dogg or Martha Stewart?
Oh, Snoop Dogg.
I can't believe I just did that.
20 times a day.
All right, that's my 5 for you. So you got 5 for me. I'll go. I'll
yeah, mine are. There's a lot more to them, but here we go. What is one daily habit that gives you the most ROI?
getting up in the morning. I think I do a meditation prayer every morning.
Awesome. What is your favorite nickname for you?
The original Snoop Dogg.
What's not a good for you food that you can't resist?
Um, here too, churros
All right. What
with
is something
chocolate and whipped cream.
you're like, I gotta go. I gotta stop this interview right now. What is something that your wife taught you about parenting?
Patience.
What is something that your kids taught you about parenting?
Patience.
Those are awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of that. I can unpack a lot of that stuff right there too. But the original Snoop Dogg is because I'm a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and in 1985, that was my nickname, was Snoop Dogg, the Snoop Dogg.
I love it. I mean, I would just say, most people here haven't been to my website. He's the most innovative person who has decade after decade found ways to reinvent himself. And he tries things that don't work out. It's just that most people don't know about it. You know, he's an announcer for MMA fights.
Right.
He has put out country music albums. He had a cooking show with Martha Stewart. Like,
Right.
He just tries all kinds of different things, and some of them really stick and some of them don't. But it's his willingness to try. That's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, he's absolutely 100% amazing. Yeah, thank you for doing that. I got another question I'm going to go back and I'm going to come back to this other question.
Great.
So I want to kind of drill down a little bit more into how to become more curious. So can you name 3 to 5 ways how to become more curious?
Yeah, number one, know that you have blind spots in your relationships. And unless you ask, like, one of my favorite questions that my husband and I ask each other, and we do this maybe every 2 weeks, is what is something that you wish I knew about you? And I've been with my husband for more than 20 years. We have been together since children. You would think that we know everything there is to know about each other, but giving people the space to be honest has opened up so many beautiful conversations. And so I wish that for everybody. And you can do that with employees, children, anybody.
I love that.
You'll be surprised at what kinds of responses you can get just by asking questions. So with my son, there's like a 5-method parenting technique that I like to use, of like 5 things that I try to do as a parent. And every year on his birthday, I interview him on how I'm doing in each of those things.
That's
and
awesome.
Even though he's 7, he gives really insightful answers. And it's one of the things that I look forward to, like being surprised by his perception of what's going on. And don't think that your perception is reality. You have such a biased view of the world, not just in like the biases that we're used to talking about, but in the way that your brain operates, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, whether you like certainty or you're okay with things being, wishy-washy. All of those different things that make your brain comfortable are different than other people, and it makes you perceive the world in a different way. So being open to being surprised is like the number one way.
I love that. So I know the reason I was asking that was I knew I was going to ask that question to you, because I was my wife had she's a flight attendant, and she had a really long day. I was looking at her schedule because she sent me the schedule. I put it into an app, and I can track her where she's at. And I was like, holy cow, she's like Denver, LA, Baltimore, and then back. I'm like, holy woof, that's a lot of that's a lot in a day.
Yeah.
So I was I wanted to do something for her. So I went to a local store to pick up a small gift, and because I knew she was coming back in, and my wife is very curious person, and she was asking me, why is it taking you so long to get home? And so I was like, well, I'm at the store, is what I said. And then she's like, well, you rarely go to the store. Why are you at the store? Why are you at the store? Why are you at the store? And so I played it off, and it's like I didn't hear her or something, because I wanted to get the gift. And so when I get home, I had a bouquet of flowers for her, right? I'm curious, what do you suppose her response was?
Was it, oh my God, this is wonderful?
She jumped into my arms.
Oh, that's cool.
It was good. So yeah, so that was I got kudo points on that. All right. So last question I have for you here is has to do around something I've been working on. I've been trying to get people to just share kind of their first thoughts around this, and it has to do with this going back to the original part of the conversation around fear, and what I've learned through this whole process of COVID, the racial reckoning in America and globally, and the heated political election, is that when truth outweighs fear, we commit to a courageous life. Want your thoughts on that and how that resonates with you?
So much to unpack, but I will tell you that this is a topic that I'm very interested in, and I just finished the first draft of my next book, which is all about how to create courage in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I've learned from my research is that courage in our private lives is different than courage in the workplace, where it is very much a calculated decision based on how you're treated by your coworkers and your boss. And the same person can be extremely courageous in one part of the same building and completely shut down in another part. And so understanding that our words have so much impact on the courage of others is one of the most important self lessons that I've been going through over the last year.
Yeah, that's powerful, and the way we say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, how our body language is associated with it. Yeah, for sure. So we have great conversation, says Lynn. So she's loving the conversation, and then Diana Parker says your reference on Snoop Dogg is totally basic space of no creature comforts to remind us about the beginnings about what the beginning is about. So I think she's pushed you out there. So thanks, Diana, for doing that. I know that the other Diana with the one N is very appreciative of that. So that's like the wrap that I have for you. How do people find you, get in contact, how do they book you to speak, and all those other great things? Because like when I saw you, I was like, I'm ready to book you right now. I'll put you in my back pocket and take you with me. Yeah. How do people find you?
So I'm at Diana Kander on most social media platforms, and we can connect on LinkedIn. It's my favorite platform right now, where I post daily tips on how to be more innovative at work, and at least one tool each week of something that you can use to become more curious, more innovative.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for gracing us with your presence today. I'm a super fan of yours, as you probably can tell. I was just on with one of our clients, and they told me to tell you that they adore you, and they can't wait for you to come back to them. And so we share the same sentiment on that. So stick around for a few seconds. I'm going to close out for right now, and then we'll have a little chat because I got another question to ask you. Right. So thanks a lot, Diana.
Thank you so much, John. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. All right. That was the amazing Diana Kander. Wow. Just a fantastic conversation. Remember, we were talking about this all the time. When truth outweighs fear, we commit to living a courageous life. And that's what, we got to check ourselves. We have to understand where our fear is coming from and the object of that fear. So it's not just fear for fear's sake. What's the object behind it? How is it really impacting us and impacting the decisions that we are absolutely making? And one of my favorite quotes is always Anais Nin, who says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So keep on blossoming out there. So I want you to go out and follow all the social media sites, follow Diana, follow me, make sure that the notification bell is on wherever you're listening from, because we will do this every Thursday at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon Mountain Time. So make sure that you're on and you are following to get these great conversations. We'll chop them up, we'll split them up, and we'll put them back out for your content so that you can do it in smaller bite-sized chunks. So remember, you are the inspiration of the catalyst to motivation. Motivation in turn causes actions. Actions lead us to transformational results, and those results, they re-inspire us or allow someone else that's watching the process to catch their own vision. So go forth and inspire your world, and we'll talk to you again next week on Hurdlers of Adversity, Inspirers and Maximizers of Pivotal Moments. Bye for now.